Okay, we're gonna get started. Some folks still getting their drinks at the bar. But we need to get started. We got a lot to go through. So we're gonna kick it off here today. Thanks everybody for coming. And I'm gonna introduce Jim Canders, President of the LSCA Cancer Association. We just want to thank the facility here today. What a beautiful place to have a meeting. The government here installed this meeting and we celebrating on 16th of August. But just get back a word guys.
Yeah.
No. What?
This is high tech, Jeremy.
Now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Okay, in addition to the facility for the contact the senators, state senators going today, weeks out there. Also, we have a representative, Richard, who's the audience. All right, and Donna Wells has representatives here from the select board, so the Don Bruce, Paul, and Tim. So thank you. Right, so let's go back around and over here. I can kind of talk to here. It's kind of clear, and you'll get all of that, and we're going to Thanks, Jim. Great, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. We appreciate seeing so many people here that care about the lake and supporting of the Lakes and Cather Association. So thank you for being here. So just a quick introduction for the evening. Please make sure your cell phones are silenced. We are recording the presentation, so this will be available later in the week, next week, so you can reference it if you need to. And after the meeting, at about 7:15-ish, we're going to ask everybody to stand up and step outside. And what we'll do then is we'll set the room for dinner. So we'll let everybody know. We'll step out. Staff staff will take care of all the tables and chairs for us, and then we'll have our dinner this evening. So here's a quick look at the agenda. We'll go through everything that you see up here. Talk about water quality, AIS prevention and control, outreach, engagement, finances, lake safety, and wildlife around the lake. We'll have our trustee elections, and we've got a full slate of elections this year, which is great. And then we'll have Q&A. So a quick round of applause. Here's our trustees for the year. They're over here. We do have 3 openings on the board. We are filling one of those this evening, which you'll hear about a little bit later. But we do need folks to step up. We need some help. We're down a few board members. So if you're interested, please let us know. Use the help. So just a quick introduction for some of our trustees. So we've got Kevin McShane who's here. Mark. Bob isn't our host tonight, but then we've met James Canders, the president. Michael Gay is right there. Nancy. Oh, there. Then we got Sue. Jeff Randall? So we do want to mention something we lost in court. So, my wife. So right now, we lost him.
Okay. Number race. You need a round to it.
Yeah. Thank you. That helps.
Very important.
Yeah. So Frank was a great guy. He was on the board for a long time. There, sorry. You know, I hope for it's a very nice man, and he did a lot for the lake. He did the safety courses, so maybe some of you or some of your kids or grandkids took his class when they got their education course, so they could operate a motorized vessel on the lake. He also, for many years, took care of all the buoys and the markers around the lake. And passed away. Jim.
You'll be missed, Jeremy.
Yeah. Didn't expect that, sorry. So general business for the year, what we need to do is to prove our minutes from last year. So folks who attended the meeting last year, these were our minutes. We recorded the meeting. It's on our YouTube channel on our website. So I just need a motion to approve the minutes. For
So
last year.
moved.
Okay, Lena, thank you. And a second? Second. Second. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much. Piece of business that we need to take care of. So the first thing we want to talk about tonight is water quality. We've got a lot of programs that we do around the lake, and we just want to touch on those briefly for you and talk about what we've done this year. We work with a number of local partners like Holy Meadowweed, and Hillary's here. So a round of applause for Hillary and Holy Meadowweed. Hillary and her team do a fantastic job on the lake. We're so grateful for the partnership with Hillary and Holy Meadowweed Natural Resources Conservation District. So some of the programs that we're working on that you've heard us talk about are the Lake St. Catherine Watershed Action Plan, the Stormwater Master Plan, Lake-wise. We'll talk about lake monitoring and some other testing. And then last year we did a sediment test of the lake, and we'll tell you the results of that. After 3 years plus of hard work, the Lake St. Catherine Watershed Action Plan is complete. We had a presentation in June to give everybody the details. A full document and report is available on our website. So we encourage you to check that out. A ton of work went into it. We'll talk about it here real briefly. So we'd like to thank all the people that were involved. Holy Meadowweed, Vermont State University Castleton, Professor Andy
Vermilia.
I always say his name wrong. I apologize, Andy, for listening. From Castleton, Fitzgerald Environmental Associates, our limnologist Emily Porter Goff, the Vermont EPC, and then the towns of Wells and Pulteney, and the Lake St. Catherine community. Everybody contributed to this report. So this is some of the things that the Watershed Action Plan looked at around the lake. The team looked at road management, maintenance protocols across culverts around the lake. They did an assessment of the wetlands around the lake, the forests around the lake, the stream stability, and then current in-lake conditions, and then upland sources of sediment nutrients that run off into the streams that end up into the lake, development trends on conserved lands, and current land use and shoreline conditions. And you can see here, 3 of these things are unique to our watershed action plan. So this is a state DEC program for creating these for lakes around the lake. Ours was a little bit different than some other ones. We looked at road management, we looked at wetlands, and we looked at forest lands, which a lot of those other plans did not do. So it's very comprehensive of the entire watershed of the lake. And this is where you can look at it, lakesandcapture.org/LWAC. So I encourage everybody to go take a look at this document. Then not only the document, but also the appendices. There's photos from around the lake, in the watershed, our wetlands. So things you maybe don't think about when you're on the lake, but that are hugely important for the health of the lake. So please check that out. Another big program is the Stormwater Master Plan. This was created by Hillary's group, Holy Meadow Natural Resources Conservation District, and Fitzgerald Environmental back in 2018 and 2019. So 50 sites around the lake were identified as contributing runoff into the lake. And initially, as part of that project, 6 projects were designed and implemented in around 2020 and 2021. But then what we did is we did a follow-up grant with Holy Meadow. Got $50,000 to do additional designs around the lake for 10 to 12 more projects that were identified. We had a number of meetings leading up to the selection of those sites that would be designed. And then we had our final meeting on those designs in June. So these are the areas where designs were made by Fitzgerald Environmental. So there were designs at Ferncliff and Ivy Lane, at the end of Westlake Road. Down in this area by the lighthouse, Channel Drive, Clean Track, Lockley Lane, the end of Cones Point, and near the cafe. So these were designs that we can then work with the homeowners and the property owners of those areas, and then make sure that they're okay with this design to limit the runoff that's running into the lake from their property. And then we can try to get funding grants for those designs, and then they can be implemented. So we've got a lot of work to do, but each thing is the next step to get these things taken care of. So Lakewise, this is more of an individual property owner project that we can work with you on. It's already underway on the lake. Jason from Holy Meadow is doing a great job. She did a great job last year. She's already meeting with homeowners around the lake to look at how they can make their property lake friendly. And that's the whole goal of what the Lakewise program is. How to make your individual property not contribute runoff. So I picked this one. Carol and Herman are here, right? They're right there. They're Lakewise winners from 2022. So they're down on the lower channel past Little Lake. They have a great property that met all the criteria for the Lakewise Award. So the Lakewise Award looks at your property and they assess it for how lake friendly it is. And then they give you recommendations on things that you and the group at Holy Meadow can do for you to help make your property Lakewise friendly. If your property then meets the criteria for being Lakewise, you get this award that you can show on your property, and that's the plaque that they're holding in this photo. So we're one of the lakes in Vermont that has, I think, the most assessments that have been done around the lake. We have 29 award winners. And our goal is to get the Gold Lakewise Award for the entire lake. That's going to be a lot of work. We need to get about 50%, or we do need to get 50% of the shoreline properties around the lake up to the lake-wide standard to win that. There's criteria as part of the lake-wide program where they look at runoff that can come out of your lake. They look at your driveway, they look at your open areas, they look at your septic,
Rooftop runoff.
and you get a grade for your property. And then what the group will do with you is work to say, okay, well, if we can put some shoreline plantings around here, around your shoreline, and if we can direct some of your runoff from your roof down to a rain garden that we can help you install, then your property would grade higher from your initial grade. And then once you get the criteria for the lake-wise, you could achieve the award. So if anybody's interested in lake-wise, please let us know. We have a few slots available. Yes. Yes. So we've got a couple of folks who signed up for lake-wise where they had some renovations done, and they are working on their grounds and their landscaping. And that's a great time for our lake-wise team to come in and let you know what you can do and how they can help you. It's a free program, paid for by a grant that we get from the Lake Champlain Basic Program. So there's plantings, there's labor that's involved, and then also the homeowner and property owner and do things on their property to help get you up to that standard. So if anybody's interested, please let me know. Lena.
I just want to stress that it's free landscaping. Hey, free flowers, whatever you want. They're real nice. And then, if another Irene comes around, your property will have a better chance of surviving. So it's good for the lake, good for your property values. And Hillary's so nice. She's right there.
So, lake-wise, at our property last year, Jane did an awesome job around our two graveyards that we installed. We have these beautiful flowers that are around our graveyard this year. So it's great. It's a great program, and we encourage everybody to participate in it. And everything that I just talked about is helped to be funded by the Lake Champlain Basic Program and NUMIPIC. So all of those projects, Hillary's group and the Lakes and Capital Association, we work together to submit grants to bring funding to the lake. So really important grant writing and grant funding that we can bring to the lake. That's what we're always doing. Bring these extra funds to the lake. One quick note on spring cleanup. So this is a scene from the lake where some spring cleanup had happened. And you can see that a contractor had blown leaves into the lake instead of actually cleaning them up. So we asked everybody, not only yourself, but your contractor, please speak to them about not putting yard debris into the lake. As you can see from the Vermont DEC that this is illegal to do. And it's also not good for the lake, and that's why it's illegal. So please talk to your contractors and please individually on your properties, make sure that these leaves and yard debris is not entering ending up in the lake. And I know this is probably something that people would be happy to hear. Please clean up after your dog. You might not think it's a big deal to leave what your dog does on the side of the road, but what do you think happens to that? The rain comes, it dissolves, and it ends up in the lake. So please clean up after your dog. And don't feel bad about telling other people to clean up after their dog. So let's talk about some water quality monitoring and testing that we've been doing. Here's a few things that we'll talk about here. So lake monitoring. So Mary Jo does our lake monitoring for us. So bi-weekly, she heads out onto the lake and takes 2 water samples, one from the big lake and one from the little lake. And we do that between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And then the state runs the testing on that. So here's some of the charts that you can see, which is actually some good news. So you can see here, this first chart is our total phosphorus. So phosphorus is the chemical that gets into the lake that the plants take up that makes them grow. So we want to limit phosphorus entering the lake. So you can see here in this chart that what the DEC would consider significantly improving is our total phosphorus. So you can see our trend line here from 1990 down to one of our best readings right here, which is most recently in 2024. So that's great news. That means that less phosphorus is entering the lake, and the things that we're doing, we're having an impact, and that's what we want to see. Some of the other things that are tested are the chlorophyll level. You can see that kind of follows our trend for phosphorus. So the chlorophyll can impact the water clarity of the lake. Also, E. coli testing is going on at the state park, and we're also monitoring for cyanobacteria. We'll talk a little bit about that. So we had a lot of questions about this. We mentioned the alewife last year at the meeting. So the alewife is this invasive fish that was introduced into the lake in 1997. And you can see the huge impact that this invasive species had on the lake. So right here is 1997. So you can see we were averaging around 6 meters for our water clarity. And then once this alewife was introduced, we dropped down to around 4. That's how huge of an impact it made on our water quality. As far as clarity, meaning how far you can see down to the bottom. One of the things that we did mention that I got a lot of questions about that I wanted to include in this to bring it up again was how big of an impact this little tiny invasive fish has on other fish in the lake. So they also eat and have an impact on they take the food and outcompete some of our native fish in the lake, like yellow perch and rainbow smokes. And they also have been known to directly feed on the eggs of yellow perch and trout. So they can definitely have a huge impact on our native fish population. So it's not just water clarity. So this is why a great example of why we work so hard to keep these aquatic invasive species from entering the lake, because they can have a huge impact. Fortunately, it was from illegal stocking based on what the DEC determined. So most likely from bait fish using it for fishing. Yep. So that's how that so we did have a cyanobacteria bloom in the north end of North Bay. Cyanobacteria are a type of algae that are in all lakes. So cyanobacteria is in every lake. However, under the certain conditions, they bloom and create what they call a hazardous algae bloom, an HAV. So, unfortunately, this was back, I think, in June, early June. And I'm sure folks have noticed this year because of all the runoff that we had. You may have seen the filamentous algae, the green algae. They look like green pillows under the water.
Yep.
So that's fueled from the runoff that comes into the lake. So all that rain that we had this year probably caused that filamentous algae, which is normal and safe. It's not harmful. But what had happened in this case is all that algae had started to dissipate and it gassed itself. So it floated to the surface, and then due to conditions of waves and wind, that all ended up at the northern end of North Bay, created very stagnant water, higher temperatures, and it was enough to cause a cyano bloom that stayed for a couple of days, MJ. Yep, so that it dissipated and everything's fine there now, but under certain conditions, the cyanobacteria can expand and grow and grow and grow, and then that's the result. So that's why all these things that we're doing to limit phosphorus and stormwater from entering the lake and carrying these things into the lake to create these conditions is what we're working towards. So just tributary monitoring. So Hillary's group and Castleton have been monitoring lots of the streams and tributaries that come into the lake. So these are all streams and tributaries that come into the lake. So you can see the outline of the lake, and then you can see where all of these things come from the watershed. And all this water that ends up in these streams of tributaries ends up in the lake. So you can see here's our biggest one is obviously Endless Brook. Goes all the way down and comes into where the state park is. And as part of the Lake Watershed Action Plan, we had some funding and we actually bought some equipment for Keston University to do some water testing on these tributaries. We've been talking about this for a number of years. The DEC's next generation lake assessment. It's a couple of day lake assessment that they test all of these parameters. This has finally been completed for Lake St. Catherine. We're awaiting the results from the DEC. Once that comes out, we'll post that for you so you can read about that. So this was 2 days and maybe more of testing all kinds of different things in the lake. You can see they looked at things like crayfish and the microinvertebrates and lots of water parameters. So we'll get some data on that. So hopefully in the winter. So sediment testing, this was exciting. We worked with our limnologist as part of the Watershed Action Plan, and we used this device, which is this big tube with a weight on it, and we went to the very deepest part of the lake, and we dropped it so it could go right down into the sediment and get us the biggest, tallest sediment sample that we could get from the lake. And then what we did was to prepare it in different, what they call cookies, where you push up from the bottom and you make like a little sediment cookie, and then you scrape that into testing tubes. And then we sent all those off to 2 different testing levels. So what we wanted to do is see how old the bottom layer that we could get was, and the algae that lives in those sediment layers, when they live and die, they have I'll talk about those in a second. They're called diatoms. And they can tell us a lot about the lake and the history of the lake. So these diatoms that they looked at, they are algae with silica walls. So when they die, they leave the shape, and you can go back in time and see them because they're still in the sediment. So we looked to see what diatoms we had in the lake back in the past, and then what we currently have. So this is what we found. So this is a picture of making the cookies where you push up, and then that gets scraped into a tube to get sent out for testing. So we made a bunch of those cookies from all the way to the top to the bottom. And so what this is showing is this is what they call the taxonomy. So we looked at what diatoms were in the different layers of the lake. So on the top layer, we see richness. So richness refers to how diverse the diatoms are, how many different diatoms there are. So you can see the bottom layer had many more different diatoms than the top layer. And then what we also found was that we had 4 diatoms at the top. And the reason for that is, just like we talked about that alewife coming in, we have an invasive diatom that got into the lakes now, probably from boat traffic of water. So humans probably won't notice the difference that these diatoms are in, but what will happen is at the very lowest level of our ecosystem, the bugs that eat the diatoms, organisms, they might not be able to eat that one because they're not compatible with it. So this will have an impact on our lower level food chain. What we also did find out was that the bottom layer of the cookie, the very bottom one that we got, the total phosphorus was at 6, and currently we're at 12. So you can see from that time, and I'll talk about the dating in the next slide, we've doubled our phosphorus that's been in the lake. So phosphorus comes from sediment. It can be on sediment, it can be septic systems, it can be anything that's run off into the lake. So for fertilizer, and just dirt and particles itself, they bind to the the sediment, and then that gets carried into the lake. So the oldest layer, when we dated it, went back to 1850, which was pretty interesting. So in the past 175 years, our concentration of phosphorus in the lake has doubled. And then we also, this chart shows here that between here and here, there was a huge sedimentation event that occurred between the years of 1875 and 1920. So we reached out to the Poland Historical Society and asked them, why is that? Could you give us any information? This is some of the interesting information that they were able to provide that made sense to our oenologists who looked at all this information. Some of the interesting ones was that there were only 100 cottages on the lake by 1910. They found a photo of the lily pond, and the lily pond had no trees around it. They had actually deforested the whole lily pond. So that obviously allows more runoff to get into the lake. And that was around 1900. There was also, if you can imagine this, a huge fire on the west side of the lake. So that mountainside on the west side of the lake was all on fire. And you can see how they describe it. The burning trees and brush upon the towering mountains must have afforded a grand spectacle indeed. So that could have also impacted the trees and the brush there, allowing things to rush into the lake. And then it could be from quarry industry that really started out in that time frame. So at that time, a lot of sediment entered the lake, and we can see that based on that sediment testing. So this is something we've been talking about for a couple of years. We've been trying to get this grant to buy some water testing equipment for the lake. So these are some pretty cool devices that we can actually put in each of the three basins. So one in Lily Pond, one in Big Lake, one in Little Lake. And they would constantly take the readings for dissolved oxygen, and that's a health lake indicator. And they would also, three different devices would check for conductivity. And the reason you check for conductivity is to see how salt is impacting the lake. And that's a big issue that you may have seen on the news lately. There's a bill that's been going through the legislature to try to limit the amount of salt going into lakes, but also keeping the safety of being able to keep our roads safe in the winter. So there's that, trying to strike that balance because they are noticing, the DEC is noticing that our lakes are getting more salty, which is not good. Also with this, we would have this handheld unit where we'd be able to go and take a reading anywhere in the lake. And we'd also get some equipment to do some macroinvertebrate testing, which is looking at the bugs that are living in our tributaries, which would also be a health lake indicator. And we're very happy to report that this one was awarded. I think we brought 3 different grants for this one. We finally got it on the 3rd try, so that was very exciting. We found that out in early June. So we're waiting for that to get finalized, and we'll be able to purchase this equipment and get it deployed around the lake as well. Let you know when that happens. So aquatic invasive species, we talked a little bit about it so far, but we work very hard to both control what we have and to prevent any new ones from entering the lake. So these are just a couple of quotes from the DEC and Fish and Wildlife about what aquatic invasives are. So they're non-native species whose introduction can cause harm to the environment, economy, and human health. And there's another quote there from Fish and Wildlife. So we've already shown you how impactful aquatic invasive species can be coming into the lake. So that's why we work to prevent new ones from coming in, and then obviously dealing with the ones that we have. I'm sure you're all familiar with the most famous one, Eurasian water butterfly, which we'll talk about in a minute. So these are some of the aquatic invasives that the state is keeping an eye on. So we have Eurasian water milfoil, we have curly leaf pondweed, we have alewife. Luckily, we do not have zebra mussels finding water for your Asian clams, or that have been renamed golden clams. Zebra mussels and Asian clams are just a lake away from us. They're up in Bombazine. We do not want those getting into our lake. Yes, 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 they do. So these are some close-up images of some of the aquatic invasives that we're working to keep out of the lake. So you've probably seen this guy right here, this very big mussel. You've probably seen them on your shoreline. Those are called the eastern ellipto. They're very good for the lake. They don't filter the water. They like healthy water, so you see those around the lake, which is great to see. What you see on top of them are the individual zebra mussels and how small they are compared to our eastern ellipto. And what they can do, they just attach to everything. So we do not want these guys. And we mentioned these because we run the breeder program at the boat launch. So this is when a boat comes into the lake or leaves the lake. We check it when it goes in, and we check it when it comes out to make sure that it's not bringing in or carrying out any aquatic invasive species. So we did have a bit of a scare in November. The DEC had a discovery of golden clams in Lake Champlain, the very southern part of Lake Champlain. So what they did was they went to a couple of lakes that are near that area, the very southern tip, which I think is the Whitehall area. So they came to our boat launch and they did some testing and they found this one individual half of a zebra mussel ship. They did some water testing. They did not find the veligers, which are the larvae. So we think that this was just on somebody's boat and got scraped off and fell off into the lake. Our dash team at the beginning of the year, they did another survey of the boat launch area and they did not see these guys. What's good for our lake, we do have a little bit of built-in immunity to these guys. They need high calcium in the water and we have lower calcium. So Lake Bomazine, they have 20 milligrams per liter of calcium in their water. We only have 13. So we're not 100% safe, but we have this going for us. But that's still doesn't mean that we shouldn't be on the lookout for these guys anywhere. So here's our breeder program. They work at the boat launch. They work from Memorial Day to Labor Day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, holidays, fishing tournaments. This year, or last year, we did a kind of low 996 inspections. This year, we're already at 800. So boat activity has definitely increased this year, and staff is at the boat launch checking all these boats. They're only here Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right? Thursday too? They're there every day now? Okay, all right, great. So we did get some grant money this year, and John was able to, John, who retired last year, but still helping us out. Thank you, John. John's still helping us out with the breeder program. They're doing a great job, and what a great staff that we have. But they're there every day, which is great. I think that's the first time that's happened. Your question.
Is anything done at the state park at that launch?
So we did try an expansion into the state park. It's very difficult because we did expand there, and there'd be days where the breeder would be there all day and most wouldn't show up. So we're trying to see if we can do something more at the state level where, hey, you're a state park, you've got a boat launch. You guys should be checking these boats as they come in. You know, we're going to see if we can try to do that and work with the state park system to see if we can do something. Is there another question? No? Okay. We have another program called the Invasive Controllers. This is fun where we get out and we paddle and we look for invasive species that might be near the boat launch. Because that's where they would show up most likely if we got something new, because that's where the boats are coming in. So we haven't set up an invasive controller yet this year, but we're looking to do that sometime in August. So if you're interested in that, if you like paddling, keep an eye out for an announcement for that. And it's kind of an early warning system. We look to see if anything weird shows up at the boat launch. If it does, we can take a sample of it, get it off to the DEC and say, hey, this doesn't look right, or can you guys come take a look? So the milfoil control program, we're going to hand this over to Jeff Crandall.
First, I would like to say is everyone, thank you so much for coming. See you all here. So, the lake has looked pretty good from the perspective of the past few years. So, one of the questions I get in my capacity as chair of our local why does the association spend so much time on this? And I also get the question on occasion: is it milfoil? Isn't that a good thing? But anyone who was on the lake 2003 or 4 will remember how drastic the situation was. I mean, almost the entire shoreline was choked with dense milfoil mats, and the approach we were using at the time, which was mechanical harvesting, ultimately, the state actually made the situation worse. So our so-called modern day program started in 2000. And the lake has been in so much better shape since then. Last year at the annual meeting, we did a deep dive into the various aspects of our milfoil control program. So we're not going to repeat all that history. That recording is still on the website for those who would like to take a look at it. I do want to spend a few minutes talking about our new 5-year permit, which we obtained from the state earlier this year, which put back in very important tool to combat our milfoil growth, as well as some of the things we're doing currently with the 2025 program and giving you some information and data. So basically, as far as our new 5-year permit goes, in order to do anything, permit controlling bees other than handling it from your own dock, you have to get a permit from the state's Department of Environmental Conservation. So, and those permits, once you give them a non-perpetual, you have to go back on any, on our normal aquatic nuisance control permit. It's every 5 years that has to be renewed. And that's done, the state does a very extensive and thorough review of what we ask them to do. It's not just us, there are many other lake associations in the state that basically ask for a very similar kind of permit. But the Department of Health gets involved, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, they all play very important roles in this. So in November of last year, the DEC held a public meeting at our permit, on our permit in Wells, and the DEC made a presentation, the association made a presentation, and there were a number of public comments that were received before. And our application was approved and the permit was issued in April of 2025. And there were many, many comments in support of the work of the association that were submitted to the DEC. And we wanted to thank everyone that basically came out and supported what we were trying to do. Also wanted to note that our suction harvesting and gas permit, that's for 10 years. So that isn't part of the 5-year permit we just got. That's something we have to deal with the state separately. We have another 4 years. So just to talk briefly, what is, I think most of us know what duration of water milfoil is at this point, but it's very unfortunate. It's a non-native invasive species. It has no natural controls at all. So insects, bacteria, fungi, there's nothing out there that's going to keep it in check. And anyone who remembers our milfoil situation in 2003 will remember that that plant can grow 20 feet into 20 feet of water right to the top. It forms extremely dense mats, and where the ability of that plant to go from 1 acre to 10 to 100 in a short period of time, it's quite remarkable what it's able to do. And some of that spreading is caused by boats, running through it and spreading fragments, but the plant remarkably in the fall will self-fragment. And if you see these little pieces in October floating on top of the water with little white things growing out of the side, those are roots. that the plant creates itself for the purpose of creating havoc for lakes such as ours. But it's definitely not a good thing, you know, if you want to have, like, in addition to adversely affecting property values and recreation, it can have a significant adverse impact on lake health. It basically chokes out native plants almost completely, which is what we saw prior to 2004. It decreases light penetration, habitat complexity. It affects the oxygen levels. It increases sediment, nutrient loading, and it eventually will potentially lead to a state of the lake down a very sad path towards eutrophication. So it's definitely something that we want to keep under control. I do get calls from people in cases they've got a lot of milfoil in front of the house. You come out and take a look, and they're very, most of the time it is milfoil. And that's the plant that you can see on the left. But there are many other plants that I get told us. For example, all that's left is Illinois pondweed. That's been a native plant. It's a good plant. It provides great habitat for fish. So we want that plant in here. Second one, curly leaf pondweed. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. That is not a good plant. That's a non-native invasive. And so we want to keep an eye on that one. And then on this page, there's several other common plants that are all native that we find in the lake. So just to mention again, curly leaf pondweed. Here's a clear picture of it on the right. And we started to see it showing up in our annual plant surveys, which the state requires us to do. And over the last few years, we've noticed that it's spreading both into the lake and in the channel. And as with milfoil, it's not a good thing in the lake. So if you happen to see it in the water growing in front of your house, please do everything you can to help remove it from the lake. Milfoil control education is one of the things we've done for a long time. It's our so-called stop the spread education and outreach, where we spend a lot of time providing information to boaters and property owners and best practices to limit the spread of milfoil. There's a lot of information on this on our website, and if anyone who would like to get more information should please feel free to take a look at that. One of the things I would like to say is that the volunteers we have around the lake that really help us with this effort is really quite remarkable. I wanted to thank everyone who's been helping out over the years. But to the extent you see plants moving in the water, if you're going by a kayak, in the canoe, or whatever, if I see that, I'll just grab that piece and drop it on the bottom of my kayak or my canoe, and then take it home and drop it on the shore, far away from the shoreline. And if you see plants growing in front of your house, you should get down there if you can and pull it out. If you pull it out halfway, it's going to come right back. You really need to, if it's possible for you to do that, to get to the bottom and pull it out by the roots. So our DASH program is an extremely important part of our program. In fact, it's the primary tool that we use for milfoil control. But basically what that is, it's not like a vacuum cleaner where you go down to the bottom and you just suction everything up. But the DASH team, they're divers, scuba tanks, they go down, they pull up, a hand pull the milfoil by the roots, and then they feed it into a suction tube, a foot or two off the bottom, and then that gets suctioned up into it's a converted pontoon boat that we use, placed in buckets, and then it's transported for disposal. And the DASH team also, if they see garbage, things like that, cans floating in the water, while they're at it, they basically will pull that out. And we've asked them to keep a close eye out for any additional zebra mussel shells, given the scary finding that we had at the boat launch last fall. So one of the things we also do is we use only as necessary and only as a secondary tool. The DASH is we use Priscilla core spot treatments. And the reason for that is if there are lots and lots of sites in milfoil, And the dash team just cannot keep up with them. To the extent there are large beds surviving in September or October, that plant is tenacious. It will self-spread into many other areas, and all of a sudden is out of control. And so, we saw up in Lake Dunmore, I think they had 4 dash boats trying to control the milfoil. And ultimately, they concluded that dash alone was not going to be sufficient. So earlier this year, I think they also applied for Cellacor permit. And there's been a lot of talk about Cellacor, is it good, is it bad, lots of misinformation, which unfortunately was one of the byproducts of social media, is you can repeat the same thing 3 times and it becomes true. And that's one of the things we've seen, unfortunately, with Cellacor. But it's a highly regulated product, approved by the EPA. It's used in virtually every state in the country as the key tool to control milfoil. It's really a very important, safe, and effective tool as part of our overall program. But just to stress, it's not the primary tool. It's not the only thing we do. We primarily rely on dash, and only if needed, we will supplement with Cellacor. So Jeremy talked briefly about some of the water quality improvement projects like Lake-wise Storm Water Master Plan, Watershed Action Plan. These are all extremely important to limiting phosphorus and other nutrients from entering the lake, because to the extent they freely get into the lake, they're just going to exacerbate milfoil growth, and that's something that we don't want. So just going back briefly on what we did in 2024 is we did 7 small spot treatments with Cellacor. You can see these are the areas in red, the ones in green, which are a lot more. You can see that those are the dominant sites, the green ones. Green one's a dash, and which was, you can see what we had 106 acres, the Cellacor was only 34. And I want to stress that was 3.2% of the lake. It's tiny. But what that does is last year, because we were able to control the red site for Cellacor, it allowed the dash team to focus on the much larger areas. And if by the end of the lake, I think the plant survey we had before was quite remarkable in terms of how low the milfoil growth actually was. So, one of the things with milfoil, you never know what you're going to get until you have to do your spring survey. So, in addition to the fall survey, which the state makes us do as part of the permit process, in May we do our own survey just to double check what was found in the fall. And this year, we're really quite surprised that there was extremely limited milfoil growth throughout the lake system, and the only really significant site we found was in the Little Lake, down by the site where the harvester that's used down there for conservation fund basically unloads, but it was really remarkably little milfoil. And so we decided this year was going to be just suction harvesting, and we identified a number of sites that you see in green that we were going to use that equipment on. One of the things I will note is as time went on and the water got warmer, some of the areas where we had virtually no milfoil, the milfoil started to come back. And the most significant area of that is you can see kind of the view in Atwater Bay, and there's quite a lot of it there. But so far, the dash team has been up in the Lily Pond across the state park, all the way down Combs Point. You can see they've cleared any plants that were there. Oxbow Bay along West Lake Road, and upcoming areas that they're going to focus on. They're going to contract is through the end of August, so there's still about 5 weeks left. The area up by the so-called rock buoy at the upper part of the view in Atwater Bay, because a lot of boat traffic goes through that, we want to definitely focus on that. And we're also going to have the team spend some time in Horseshoe Bay and in Idlewild Bays in the sites that are noted there. So just in terms of milfoil control, we can all contribute to this. And whenever you see it, floating, if you can get it from your boat, just pull it in and just dispose of it, away from the shoreline. If you see a large patch of milfoil, I know in the Wood Lake, unfortunately, it's shallow, there's a lot of it there, and it's hard to not drive your boat, through those patches. But that does create fragmentation, and if you have it on your prop, I know the practice for decades has been just, throw your engine to reverse and it'll come off and off you go, but that leaves a lot of fragments. And every fragment is going to drop to the bottom and create a new plant. And that plant is going to be an acre and then 10 acres before you know it. So every little plant, remember, we didn't have milfoil before the 1970s, and no doubt trailer boater brought it in. And one or two plants created the mess that we had, 10 years later. So, every little bit certainly counts. Jeremy also mentioned phosphorus-based fertilizers are a problem. A lot of beautiful lawns around the lake, and putting, there's always the temptation to put a fertilizer on it. But if it's a phosphorus-based fertilizer, you can rest assured that the next major rainstorm is going to put a lot of that right into the lake, and it's going to defeat those milfoil plants. And, importantly, helping to reduce runoff from your property by planting buffers and installing silt curtains during a construction project. And I think most of the contractors and homeowners with construction are pretty good, and there are a few projects going on. And most of them have silt curtains, but occasionally you'll see one where there is no silt curtain, and there's a big pile of dirt, 40 feet from the edge of the water. The next rainstorm, that sediment is running right into the lake, and that's going to exacerbate plant growth. But it's not hard to plant buffers, and it's, again, some experts in the crowd would be happy to talk to you about what you can do. But even let that lawn grow, let the last 2 or 3 feet of the lawn grow 2 feet high, and mow the rest of it and have a path going down in between. And that 2-foot-high section of grass will help slow the amount of sediment into the lake. So it doesn't take a lot to make your property a much healthier place to be. So in terms of, so one last thing I just wanted to mention is one of the things we found in doing up-to-date research on the negative consequences of milfoil, which we really hadn't focused on before. Actually, I think my wife was here tonight actually came up with this one. But those large floating dense milfoil beds are a huge breeding ground for mosquitoes. And we all know we have enough problems with mosquitoes, so that's the last thing we want us to see milfoil come back and look the way it did before. Okay.
Thank you. We've got about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to fly through these slides here. So we just want to encourage everybody to, we've got 20 plus years of aquatic plant surveys on our website. We encourage you to check them out. We're working with a new company called Arrowwood Environmental. They've done some really great surveys for us over the last couple of years. So I encourage you to check those out. Every fall, they go out to 199 GPS points that have been surveyed for the past 20 years plus. And collect data, so we've got a lot of great data about the plants in the lake. So one final thing on aquatic plants in the lake, we want to mention this. The DEC gave us this chart recently. So this represents all the time that we've been really doing milfoil control in the lake, which includes gash and spot treatments. So, and this is exactly what we want to see. So based on our milfoil control program over the last 20 years, you can see that all these trends are going up. And what they're showing is that the frequency of occurrence, which means how many times you're seeing a particular plant at a survey point, and the species richness, which is the different amount of plants seen at the survey points, have all increased. So that's showing that because we are controlling milfoil and letting our native plants grow, that they're occurring more frequently, and different species are occurring more frequently at all of our survey points. So this, like I said, this is exactly what we want to see. milfoil is down and our native plants are growing. That's a great chart. And as Jeff mentioned, there's lots of misinformation about milfoil control, the process that we go through to get a permit, the process that we go through every year to present our claim to the DEC. So if you have any questions on that, please let us know. We're happy to talk about it and let you know, give you the right information where you can research it yourself. We can put you the right information. But please reach out if you have questions. And AS funding, again, we worked hard to get grants from the state and from Lake Champlain and Newington this year. So a lot of great work went into bringing these funds to the lake so we could use them for invasive species control and prevention. So quickly, we'll talk about some outreach and engagement things that we've done over the past year. We encourage you, if you don't regularly visit our website, our blog is updated all the time. Our Facebook page is updated all the time. We've got our spring and fall newsletters. We send out frequent emails, so our members are always up to date on what's going on at the lake. And if you'd like one of the trustees to come over to your lake, to your property and talk about the lake, let us know. We'll set up a dockside chat. We will come over and chat about the lake at your place. So some things that we've done this year, we had Green Up Day. This was great. This is our biggest year yet. We had all the roads had volunteers cleaning up trash around the lake as part of this once a year statewide cleanup the first Saturday in May. We partnered with the town of Wells and the town of Pulteney, and we got not only people around the lake, but also up into Wells and Pulteney roads all around the town. So this is a great thing, and look for it next year. It's a great thing to do. Libraries Love Lakes. We got a grant in partnership with Ina at the Wells Village Library. Unfortunately, Gina's moving on at the end of the month. She was a great librarian for the town of Wells. She was really involved in this program called Libraries Love Lakes that partnered the local library with the local lake and to do outreach events to teach people about lake stewardship. So this was one of the grants that helped fund this actual section of the library that has books and materials about the lake. It also helped to fund the watershed model I'll talk about in a moment. So a recent event that happened after the meeting last year, this is local artist Peter Hatoon. He came over to the Little Lake at this event at the Wells Lakeside Park. And the event was art and nature. So we had Peter came in and he did this beautiful painting of Little Lake that's available to purchase on the website. That's the painting right there. You can see him actually painting. It was a great event as part of the library's Little Lakes program. Also, the grant funded this watershed model, and the watershed model is set up out here. So we encourage you to take a look at it. It's filled with water, and you can see the model of the lake. It's very cool. It's a work of art by itself, but also can teach us about runoff and things about the lake. So please check that out tonight. We'll be showing it off. We had the meetings that we talked about the lake watershed action plan and the stormwater master plan. That was in June. Thank you to the town of Wells for being able to use the town offices for those meetings. We had 3 meetings in June, so thank you for the use of the town offices. Quickly, we'll go through the boat parade. We had some great boats. There was a great boat parade this year. We had 520 boats. That's double what we had last year, so we get bigger and bigger every year. Thank you to Miss Karen Belzer. She's here somewhere. Thank her for her photos, and we'll thank her for her wildlife photos in a second when we get to those. So we had the patriotic boats. We had funny boats. Funny club. We like big boats. That was the funniest. We got minions. We've got the Green Monster, which was funny, and you heard there's a cell tower going in, so I think that's what probably that was about. We got service to the lake. Best overall, I don't Is anybody here from the Spirit of Woodstock? I think there is, yes. Oh, great one. And just an honorable mention, where's Ruby? Where's Ruby? That's it. She was the hatching loon chick. I love that. Awesome effort, Ruby. Thank you. We're going to be at East Poly Day. That's on August 9th. We hope to see you there. We want to mention this real quick. So folks at Lakes End reached out and said, hey, we got a ton of milk. We've never had that at Lakes End. What can we do? I talked to whose family owns the very last camp there. I said, hey, let's get some folks together. We'll get out there and we'll handball it. He said, that's great. He got to his neighbors. They said they're all in. So we're doing it August 10th. We're going to get some mats. We're going to lay out there. We're going to handball all this milk oil that showed up. What's interesting is you can see normally they have these small lily pads and another small lily pad called Water Shield that is usually on the shoreline. And you can see the milk oil grew so quickly and so thick and dense that it actually made it so that it didn't grow. So that's what milk oil does to our native plants. So we're going to get out there and we're going to handful that. If anybody's interested or can lend us one of those floating mats where you can be right on top of the water, let me know. We're going to need it. So thank you to these folks for taking some initiative and putting in the elbow grease to help clean that up. We want to mention the Federation of Vermont Lakes and Ponds. That's a statewide group that works, advocates for all lakes. So they're the lakes, they're an association for lake associations. So we're one of 51 different lake associations around the state that are members of FOBLAT, and you have 2 board members on the board of the Lakes and Captain Association that are involved with FOBLAT. And it's great because we get updates from the DEC all the time, and then we can share that information with you. So if you're interested in supporting FOBLAT, you can go to vermontlakes.org. It's a $25 membership. They could use your support, and they do a lot of great work around the state supporting lakes and lake associations like the Lakes and Captain. Quickly on finances, we get funding from dues and donations, like you heard from grants from the state, and we get allocations from the town of Wells that are voted on in March. Quick note on grants. We put a ton of work into grants. We want to raise funds for the lake. It takes a lot of work to get these grants written, to get approved. And then once they get approved, it takes a ton of work to do all the reporting that's required. And then to actually administer the grants and actually do the work for the grants. So just want to give everybody a round of applause for the board and all the hard work. 25,000 for aquatic invasive species. The watershed action plan was 38,000. That was paid for by a grant. The water testing equipment I talked about. So the stormwater action plan, $50,000. That's all. We're putting in all this work to bring those funds here to the lake. Quickly on membership, we're working to get towards 400 members for the year. We're about 365 at the moment. Thanks. 366. We got one for tonight. Okay, great. A local artist on the lake, Andrew Buelis. He designed our patches for the last 3 years. These are great. We hope everybody's enjoying getting those as part of your membership package. This is what you get from us when you join. We get a thank you note, a patch, and a member card. If you get this in the mail, that means you haven't renewed your membership for the year. So these just went out this week. So if you see that, that means you haven't done your membership. We do want to let you know that there is another group on the lake. They also sent out membership letters. We did find out last year that a number of folks paid their dues to the other group, thinking that they were sending it to us. We got about 5 folks that they have it to. So just keep that in mind. You might get multiple mailings, and if you're looking to support us, you'll see, our Lakes and Captain Association is the group that you So here's our quick membership report. You can see our, we asked for $100. You can see we're at 200 is our average donation. So our contribution, that's great. People are giving a little bit more than we're asking. So we thank you for your membership and your support. Here's a quick treasury report. So this is our current income for the year. So we're at 157 current income. This is going to change as more memberships come in. But these are, again, our funding sources. And these are our current expenses. Obviously, this is going to increase. We have bills that will be coming in for our greeters, for our dash program. We'll have a lake survey in the fall, but our current expenses are lake safety. That's Justin Turner. He's our game warden. Does a great job around the lake. He asked that he please observe our 200-foot rule. Please observe the no wake zones. If you do see an issue, you can report it to Justin. Buoys and markers. Mike Gay, can you put out all our buoys and markers along with our buoy buddies around the lake? You can see, I put on these new, it's a little hard to see here, but that's a red light, solar light that's on the markers that are around the lake, the hazard markers. So when you're out at night, you'll be able to see the lake a little bit better with the solar light. So thank you to Mike and our buoy buddies for keeping our buoys and markers in place. There was a weight load rule that was put in place last year. We talked about that last year at our annual meeting. The DEC is currently in the process of changing those rules that they put in place last year. We'll make some changes, but we'll still keep Lakes and Cavern as a wake sport zone eligible lake. One of the good things that they put in was that you do need to maintain 500 feet from above their users in the wake sport zone. Typically, it's 200 feet between boat and boat. And if you're performing wake sports, they're looking at adding a set off of 500 feet. Quickly on wildlife, we're already hit my deadline here for 7:15. But we got to show you these quick pictures right here. Don and Joel from the channel, they kept a good eye on our loon this year. Our loon pair that had the check last year, they came back again. They tried it again. We put the signs out for them to give them some buffer zone. Thanks to Don and Joel for keeping these on the property so we can quickly deploy them and take them out when they're ready. This is an awesome picture from Karen where she got one of the loons that left, and you can see 2 eggs there. Awesome photo. And then, so Karen was right over there, and she got this awesome photo. So this is blue chick number 2 on the lake that we've had over the past 2 years. We're incredibly lucky to have this. Here's a couple other photos. Amazing photo. Riding on the back. This is from the lake. This is our chick from this year. Photo by Karen. And this is a little older, and it's awkward teen years. Getting crayfish into it. Awesome. Eagles. So the Eagles, they took a year off last year, but this year they got to it. And here you go. 1, 2, 3. Screaming Eagle. So this photo was taken by a friend of Michelle Bates, who owns Wellsville Farm. So that was posted online. And then these are photos again for parents. So these are the now full-size eaglets. There's 3 of them. They will get the coloring of the parents. It takes 2 to 3 years for that to happen, but they'll look like this for the next 2 to 3 years. Incredible. Fish and Wildlife. We had a fish stocking of brown and rainbow trout on March 27th. We want to tell you about the Master Angler Program. So this is Hunter Jones. He already earned his Master Angler Award for the year by catching 5 different species that were trophy size, as determined by Fish and Wildlife. And he did it on Lakes and Cavern, and he did it all in January while ice fishing. It's a great program. If you like fishing and you're fishing out there and you're catching great fish, look into the Master Angler program. It's a great, fun thing to do. And now our last slide. So trustee elections. We've got a full slate. Mary Jo, Ed, Kenny, Nancy, and our new member who stepped up is going to be Dan O'Connell. Dan said last month he was. We sent out emails and we were looking for folks. Dan emailed that he was interested. He attended the meeting today, and he made his way up on the slideshow today. So here's our slate. Can I have a motion to approve this slate of candidates? Edwina, I saw your hand first, and can I have a second? Second, thank you. Any comments or discussion? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I went over 4 minutes. So we're going to take questions after. We want to get everybody to take a step outside so we can get set up. But if you do have questions, please talk to our trustees. They will be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yes, all in favor of the slate of candidates? Thank you.